Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Stuff Podcast. Scott Martin, Bonsai Matsu, and happy World Bonsai Day. On Saturday for us here in Australia, I presume it's Saturday all around the world where it happened, and also happy Mother's Day. It's just been passed to all the mothers out there. All of us have got one shape or another, and it's a lovely time to celebrate family. And it means a hell of a lot to me. So happy Mother's Day, Mum, and to everyone else out there as well. This episode of the podcast, I want to talk about something that I've come across lately. Obviously, that's where the podcast I like to flow from is what I'm going across at the moment. So it's relative to a lot of people. And one of the things as we head towards the latter part of autumn and into winter, get ready to do a lot of wiring of young stock. And I had this conversation with someone the other night where we were talking about young stock and what the wiring should look like on that young stock. So I want to talk about setting up your stock for the future. Also want to talk about the mundane nature of what we do with bonsai and why we have to stick with it. So it's just to, I suppose, inspire us all as we go to this this dirty part of the year when there's so much foliage around the place not on the trees, it's everywhere else around the place. But as we march through that, it's try and lift your chin up and give you a good just reason to continue on with it. Also want to talk about the mishaps that we go through and talk about a story about a tree that came through the workshop recently and how a mishap turned a tree that was on the average to okay side into something that's really nice. So this should be an interesting podcast. Stick around. So World Bonsai Day. If you don't know what it is, you probably should just get onto the interwebs, have a quick search around, see what it's about. But to me, it's actually a really nice opportunity to just be grateful for bonsai in general and what it does for me and my life and how it makes me feel, and the gratitude and uplifting nature of bonsai all round. But also makes me also appreciate that there is this World Bonsai Day that in a way we're all connected together through this love of these little trees, and it's actually really powerful for me. I love it. I think it's a really, really special time to actually just stop and think for a second and just, say thank you to the trees, because without them, obviously, we wouldn't be where we are. But it's just a time to be really, really grateful and appreciate everything that bonsai offers to me in so many ways, as I'm sure it does with a lot of people as well that are listening to the podcast. All right, so now let's start talking about setting up your stock for the future. And the example that I want to talk about is if you've got a cutting or you've got a young whip or something little that's starting on its journey, right? It's just at the very start, and you might have talked about buying a tray of native seedlings, and you might be on the path to do something with those, or you might have a juniper whip or whatever it is. You've taken cuttings off trees and you've grown the roots, are all healthy, and you want to do something with them, get some shape into these things. What the best advice I could give you is what you need to be mindful of and what you need to think about a long way into the future. You don't need to have an exact picture of what you want this tree to be like, but I would put the cuttings or the whips into categories of future size of the tree that you want to generate. So let's, for sake of simplicity, make it small and medium and large. So there's three categories, right? Now, if you have think, I want you to think a long way into the future, 20, 30 years into the future now. So if you've got a small bonsai that's, let's say, 10, 15 centimetres tall, it's a really, really small little thing. The first lot of branches, if you break it into that rough guideline of rule of thirds for an informal upright or whatever, you want the bottom third to be trunk, next third to be trunk and branches, and the next third to be apex, thereabouts. So on a 15 centimetre tree, and we'll use that because it's easy to divide by 3, the first branch roughly comes in around the 5 centimetre mark, right? So on a 15 centimetre tree, you're going to want lots of twists to be on a tree of that size, if that's what you want. But you need to be mindful that when it's 15 centimetres finish size, it's really important to have a lot of branches down low, and it's really important to have those bends down very, very low on the tree. Now, flick the switch. Let's go to a bigger size tree that I can easily divide by 3. Let's call it a 90 centimetre tree, right? So it's going to be a large bugger. If you, on a little whip that's only, 15 centimetres tall now, and you start wiring the life out of that thing and turn it into a pretzel now, by the time it gets to be 90 centimetres, that's going to be the very base nabari of the tree. So doing massive tight bends on a 90 centimetre future height tree, really it's irrelevant. Like if you go back now and you look at some really magnificent trees that you aspire to have in your collection, or that you really like, that you'd love to make this whip into, then you look at where those bends start to turn, and the first breaking into that rough guideline of thirds for the tree, the first 30 centimetres is really nothing. And if your whip's only 15 centimetres, you haven't even got to the point where you've got bends in the trunk line yet. So knowing roughly where these things are going to sit, let's say it's a 30 centimetre tree, first 10 centimetres, there's really nothing there, then the first branch starts kicking. As a guide, I know you don't have to stick with that hard and fast, but I need something to visualise for everyone on the podcast as to how you've got to think about setting up your stock for the future. So if you small, medium, large, put them in the categories. What I would suggest to you is for the medium and the larger trees that you want, the bends are going to be more a one-way bend. So let's for sake of visualization say, all right, on my 90 centimetre tree, I want a big sort of curve going towards the left side, and then it's going to come up and I'm going to have a branch on the outside, and then it's going to curve all the way back and, snake around the place and whatever else. But that first bend's going to be up towards 30 centimetres. So what you do, and what I'd suggest you do is, for a 15 centimetre tree, take a piece of wire, won't need to be very, very thick, maybe, 2.5 mil, 2 mil, something like that will be enough for a tree of about that height, that thickness. But cut the length of the wire to be, 40, 50 centimetres long. Make it really, really super long. And then just start wiring part of the tree and give it a nice gentle kick over to the left if that's what you want to do, and leave the excess wire on the tree, right? So then as that tree starts to shoot off and grow in spring and it extends another, 15, 20 centimetres, you can continue wrapping that wire gently around that tree and start to bring it back around again. So rather than taking wire on, off all the time, you can basically have it where once you've got the bottom bend, you can start to remove that piece of the wire, but then put new wire on the top of it that continues. So rather than reapplying the wire, just keep using the same piece of wire further up the trunk of the tree that you're starting to put movement into. And likewise, if it's a 30 centimetre tree, then you cut it to maybe 40 centimetres of wire, something like that, and you can just continue the wire. So it's one of those things. I don't call it a job that I do. It's not where I bring the seedling into the workshop. I'll just be walking past going, geez, that's shot off. That's really extended. Extend that wire on there a little bit more. Make sure it's not cutting in too tight down the bottom. If it is, just loosen it off a little bit. Maybe cut a few of the rings of the wire going around the trunk so it doesn't cut in, and continue that wire up and continue to move. And it's a 30-second job rather than being, carry it 100 metres, put it in the workshop, get the wire cutters out, remove the wire, put the wire back on, then walk it all the way back out, then put it on the bench. It's one of those things that if it's simple and easy and quick, then I'm more inclined to do it, as opposed to something that becomes on you make a to-do list and put it on there because it's major what you have to do with it. So I found, I got given by a friend of mine, Joe, gave me a Toigawa little cutting that was starting to grow, and I used that technique on it. He'd already wired the base of it, and I just took that wire off, recopied his shape, had the long extension wire, and now I find that every time that thing shoots off and gets long, I can just extend that wire around, and it's really quick and easy to continue doing the bends on the tree, rather than what I really don't like is where you see nursery stock and it comes in and you can see the nursery's really wide, the base of the trunk really nicely, and then it's got to a point where it's started to get big and it's got more aggressive with its growing, and it's shot off, and there's a dead straight section on the tree, and then someone acquires it and then they do some more wiring. So there's like curvy trunk, dead straight, curvy trunk. It's like the two things don't fit together. So that continuity of your plan for the tree works really well, having that extra extension piece of wire that you can just simply put onto that whip and keep it going. And I know I've been talking a lot about twisting of the trunks and whatever else, and there are formal uprights, there are dead straight trunks, and I'd be suggesting to you, if you wanted to create some formal uprights, then it's possibly worthwhile wiring that trunk too while it's young to get it to be dead straight, to get it to be exactly what you want, because you might find over time with weight of foliage and all that sort of stuff, the trunk might start to dip and sway and bend. So even if it is going to be something that is dead straight, I'd still look at wiring the trunk. Go back to the 4 stages of development of your trees. Trunk and the bari, number 1. Primary branches, secondary branches, ramification. Very simple, very easy to follow. So at this stage, when you're looking at your whip, think about the potential height that it's going to be. Look at where there's potentially some branches that are coming along the trunk at those points, if they're there at that point. But try and get your bends where the branches are on the outside of the bends, not the inside of the bends, just to make your future development plans a lot smoother, a lot easier to work with. And keep that extension of the wire on there so you can continue running it up the new growth. Make it a really simple, easy thing. You do it as you walk around the yard. Go for it. If you've got hundreds of these things, I guarantee it'll save you a heap of time. Even if you've got a couple, it's something that you don't want to forget, because once that wood starts to set, as it gets thicker, as you get distracted with other things in your bonsai life, you'll find that it can get quite hard to manipulate and move. So it's the sort of thing that if it's simple, it's easy, then I reckon we'll do it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really do love the subscribers to this podcast. It means a lot to the continuity of it, and it means a lot to me to know that I've got the support of a range of people out there that really believe in what this podcast is about. So thank you very much. And if you aren't a subscriber but you're thinking about it, you can jump on board for as little as $3 a month. And like I said, it really does go a long way to supporting the continuity of this podcast for everybody. So please consider, and if you'd like to, and if you've got the means to, then jump on board and become a bonsai lover like the rest of us. Alright, so when you go to a bonsai show, when you look at bonsai on the internet, when you see bonsai, around the place, on display, they look beautiful. They look amazing. They're perfect. They've got a nice tray. They've got, maybe an accent. They've got maybe a scroll. The foliage looks perfect, absolutely perfect. Everything's great. The pot's been clean. There's no weeds. You look at and think bonsai is so good. Like how tranquil, especially if you don't know bonsai. But I was thinking, as I was walking around the other day, pulling weeds, which are never ending, as I was looking for pests on the underside of some of the old leaves to make sure that I wasn't missing things with my trees. I was looking around for decay on leaves, see if there's any fungal issues. I was cleaning leaves that had fallen off around the yard. As I'm doing all these menial tasks that just chew up hours of my day, every single day. As I was doing these things, I was thinking, geez, bonsai isn't that glamorous. It's not the original picture that I had in my head. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't a bitch session. I love it. I love everything about bonsai. From pulling the weeds, maybe. I'm not saying I love that, but I enjoy being close to my trees when I'm doing that, and I enjoy what they look like when the weeds are gone. But there's a lot that we do with our trees, like repotting of the trees. They grow this beautiful new foliage in spring, and we come around and we cut it off. It's like it just seems a bit moronic, a lot of the stuff that we do. But it's all worthwhile, and that's what I wanted this part of the podcast to be about. Is for everybody that you might be looking at these jobs, saying to yourself, geez, that's hard work. I might leave that and I'll get to it tomorrow. Or I'll get it the next day. Oh, geez, look at all those weeds. No, forget it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do needle plucking and bud selection. I'm going to wire my trees. I'm going to make them look great. I'm going to whatever. You're going to do anything other than the crappiest of the crappy jobs. But those basic tasks, they're the 1%ers. I've talked about it before on the podcast about how that's how when you look at a brilliant bonsai, when you see something and think, how do they get it to that point? It's the little things. Honest to God, it is the small things that we do with our bonsai, the cleaning of the benches, the removing leaf matter from the foliage. It's the spraying or pest management, however it is that you choose to do it. It's making sure that you got your soil mix ready to roll for repotting time. So you're doing it at the optimum time for the tree. It's the protection you provide afterwards. It's getting dirt up your nose when you're repotting because you do 40 trees in a day. Whatever menial task it is, I'm here to tell you that your tree loves you for it. If that thing could reach its little branches out as you walk past and wrap them around your back and give you a little bit of a pat and say, you know what, thank you very much, I love you for this, then I'm absolutely certain they would. As opposed to a tree that's got a place where there's limited resources, it's competing on a daily basis for nutrients and water with the weeds that are running rampant through that pot. You walk past it looks terrible, you don't enjoy seeing it like that. Let me tell you, just taking the time, doing it every single day with your trees, just keeping on top of all those crappy jobs that we have to do, makes such a big difference to your bonsai. It's unglamorous. It never makes it onto YouTube or social media platforms. But I'm telling you, that little tree in front of you, wrap its little branches around your back and give you a pat and a cuddle and say thank you very much. So you might be filling up tea bags with fertilizer. Yeah, I'm laughing about it because I sometimes I curse and I swear and I carry on and I get upset and I bloody leaves. I just cleaned you up yesterday and you're back again. Then when I'm finished it and it all looks good, it's like, yep, okay, that's fine. No worries. Just keep going. You'll be right. Don't, remember the part that you enjoy about bonsai. Remember World Bonsai Day. You're here to celebrate what bonsai gives us. I didn't think I'd be pulling so many weeds and picking up so much crap around the trees, but lo and behold, here we are, and that's what bonsai's about. So embrace it. Enjoy it. So this part of the podcast, I want to talk about mishaps, and we've all had them. Tree blows off the bench, breaks a branch, breaks the pot. I've had it where a branch has fallen out of a tree and snapped the front apex off a beautiful beech that I've got, European beech. From the back, it looks amazing. So where I sit in my kitchen and have my coffee sometimes while I'm looking out the window, I can see the back of this beech because I know when I walk around the yard and I see the front of it, I'll look up to the top, I go, oh yeah, that's where that tree came down and smashed the apex off this beautiful tree. So I want to talk about where mishaps can be used as a positive to shape the future of your bonsai. I must admit, I'm still waiting for it on a few of my trees, but I had a story the other day. Now, this I'll try not to make it drag on too long because it's an interesting story. So I'll give you the really brief version of it. Had a workshop the other day and a fella came down all the way from Beechworth. Theo, I hope you're listening, mate. This is about you. And he walks in with spruce. And he documented everything from the past of this tree, how long he'd had it, where it'd come from, what it started like. Anyway, so the mishap for this thing was it originally started, think like a Christmas tree, okay? Like a young sort of, twin trunk looking thing. Lots of foliage, very common, very standard, very, very much okay. Like on a really good path to being a nice bonsai, a really good tree. And over time, over years and development, it would become really nice. That was the original path. Then the mishap happened where one of the trunks died. And it seemed to be, I think from memory, the more dominant of the trunks died. And where it could have all gone to mud was that it could have been like, that's it, it's done. The best part of the tree's been destroyed. Chuck it in the bin, which I'm certain a lot of people listening to this podcast may have made the same decision to move it on to greener pastures and just go, you know what, I'm done with this because it died for no reason. It's not like something fell out of a tree and broke it. or it rolled off the bench and something broke it. It just part of the tree died. And so it was like, okay, well, is this the beginning of the end for this tree? Is this where it all finishes? Anyway, looks like it affected one trunk, and the trunk was quite thick because as the tree comes into the workshop, it's got this magnificent grey dead trunk at the back of it, and it has this beautiful live, nice thick trunk at the front with beautiful branches, and the two working hand in hand together as part of a future design are going to look magnificent, like really, really nice. And so it took a long time from the dying part to getting to where it is now. But, you know, we talk about having a plan or a path or a vision for your trees and taking the bumps in the road as they hit us for our trees. Well, this thing really, I'm excited. Like, we didn't get a chance in this workshop to do it because we were focusing on something else. But this tree, I'm actually really looking forward to it when it comes back into the workshop, because you can see the bones. Like, this thing has got a magnificent base to it, and it's all from a mishap, all from something that was accidental or something that's completely outside your control, or even if it's inside your control, even if it's because something dies off because it's not watered properly. Like I say, learn from it, move forward, keep going in the right direction, but make sure that you don't look at it as a mishap for something negative. Sure, take time to mourn, take time to get over it, because some of these things can take a little bit out of the soul, especially when you put so much into it and you suddenly look at it and go, oh my God, now I've gone backwards a million miles. But it's that forced redesign. It's that opportunity to rework a tree or to come up with a new vision for it. That, you know what, looking at this thing, a twin trunk spruce, you could have taken the option to say, you know what, I'm going to kill off one of the trunks and make it deadwood and design it. But I don't think many people would. I think you'd be looking at it going, no, actually, it's got two trunks. Let's work with what's there and stick with it, because that's what the tree's presenting to us, which is fine. It's more than likely, honestly, probably what I would do with the tree at the start as well. But now it's become better than what it was because of an accident, because of some incident that caused the tree to force itself to change. And as a bonsai artist, as the custodian of that tree that's in your care, you have a real opportunity and a responsibility to make sure that you do your very best, all right? And I say this thing to a lot of people, and I say it to myself, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be your very best. All right, so whatever you're doing with your tree, it's got to be the very best that you can do at that time. Can it be improved? Will it get better over time? Guaranteed, it will be. But it's got to be the very best that you do. Don't make it sloppy. Don't make it rough. Don't make it half-assed. Make it the very best that you can possibly do at the time, and look to always improve it. So those opportunities that we get to embrace a redesign or work with a mishap on a tree to make it something better than what it is, I reckon that's the gold, because you've got something that you love, that you enjoy, that you've got in your collection for whatever reason it is, whether it's the foliage, the leaf colour, the flowers, blah, 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 whatever it is. Look at those opportunities that you get, those mishaps, to take it and evolve it and develop it and love it a little bit more. I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's actually really positive. So, like I said, Theo, thanks very much, mate. I'm glad that I got to see that tree for a really short period. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. So as I look out to my workshop, I can see a queue of Japanese black pines, which means that it's a very busy time of the year. It's a really good busy time of the year for pines. Don't begrudge them. I think it's the time of the year that I get to work on them and make them spectacular, as good as they can possibly be in my eyes at that period of time. And it's meaning that we're heading towards late autumn. So the feeding will all stop for me relatively soon. Trees are all starting to go dormant. I'm going around the deciduous trees in the backyard, and I have the blower, and I'm blowing all the old leaves off the trees, making sure they stay as clean as they possibly can. But black pines, you've really got to make sure that if you have them in your collection and you're in an autumn period heading towards dormancy, then you need to make sure that you don't get slack with it. Check the wiring on the trees because they will be swelling. The branches and the trunk will be swelling at this time of the year, and it's definitely something that's going to catch you by surprise. Catches everybody, catches me. Happens almost overnight with them, to be honest. Make sure that you're needle plucking from the old needles to come forward. Have a look at the Bonsai Matsu YouTube channel, actually, because there's a black pine on there that I've just recently done, which talks about the techniques and tool cleaning, everything that you need to successfully jump into looking after your own Japanese black pine. It's a really good foundation for you to have a look at it anyway. But make sure that you don't miss this time with your black pines. For me, my deadline is the end of June. I want to have everything done before I get into repotting season. So if you're listening to this podcast and you do have black pines and you're in Australia, and you're in the southern states where we have this dormancy period, then really you've got another about 6 weeks left to make sure that they're all done. So plan it out accordingly. Don't leave it to the last minute and make sure that you get them done. So that's just my community service announcement for this podcast about any Japanese black pine lovers that are out there, because it's a really busy time. Anyway, short podcast this time because it is Mother's Day. I do want to get out there and be with my family and see them. So thank you very much for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Keep your chin up. It is a busy time to be cleaning and maintaining around the yard for your trees. Do it. Don't leave it. Just make sure that you stay on top of it, because the next part of what's going to happen is the pests come in. At the moment, they're probably not there around the leaf litter, but for me, I know as soon as I get into that June period, I get a lot of issues with any leaf litter that's sitting around the yard. And it's just good housekeeping for you to make sure that it's all as clean as you possibly can be. So keep at it. Your tree loves you for it, and I love you for it too. So thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. See you next week with another fresh one. Until then, happy bonsai.